Welcome to the Glass House. This season, we are talking about the core emotions. And today, Lynley and I are going to take a swing at shame.
Yep. We're going to take this one on.
It's just you and me.
Yep.
I hope you feel ashamed of yourself.
Oh, I was going to go sweet and say, I got you, babe, because you said it's just me and you. And then you said, I hope you feel ashamed.
Yeah, I know I'm feeling ashamed for saying that. All right, we're going to talk about this topic because it is, to quote Curt Thompson, the emotion that touches all the other emotions. Shame.
I was thinking Kirk Franklin.
Yeah, different guy.
I was like, what song are we singing?
Does it make you want to stomp? No, Curt Thompson, he's a biblical counselor. He has a whole book on this, The Soul of Shame. And he said that shame is what causes people to hide. And we're talking about this biblically.
Yeah.
There's 3 moments in the Bible that are very clear where you see shame. Obviously, in the opening chapters of the Bible, when you get Adam and Eve, they take of the forbidden fruit, and then it says they went and they hid from God. Mm-hmm. So it was the first time that they felt shame, and they felt like they needed to hide it from God. Then we have Peter. I want to jump to the New Testament. Peter is told up front by Jesus, you're going to make 3 big mistakes tonight. He denies it. And then Jesus appears to him and has to restore him because he's in shambles, because shame is just all over him. Mm-hmm. And then finally, fascinating test case here. Peter fails Jesus miserably, but he takes his shame to Jesus and he finds healing. Mm-hmm. Judas does something horrible.
He doesn't take his shame to Jesus?
No. And because he doesn't take his shame to the Lord, he has to internalize it and then ultimately takes his own life. So all through Scripture, we see this thing of this inner condemnation and what do we do with it? How do we process it? And we wanted to talk about that today. Mm-hmm. So, Lynley, a couple of things as we get going. Shame is a kind of nakedness.
Yeah.
So in your relationships, you're much better at forming deep relationships fast than I am.
I think that's a female thing.
Why is it that women can do that? What do you think it is, the difference between women and men, that women are able to get to the emotional nakedness faster? Or what happens when women get together that it just happens?
I don't know. I mean, I just think we're more comfortable with admitting weaknesses. I mean, little boys are just raised from the start to be like, man, boys don't cry. Boys are tough. Boys are going to be the leaders of the world. Boys are going to be this. And my generation, I don't think this is still as much. I mean, girls were raised to like, don't you want to be a mommy? You know, that sort of thing. And
to be nurturing.
To nurture. And I'm not saying that is right or wrong or anything. That's just my experience. And so I think to have nurturing tendencies, you want to nurture friendships as well. And so I would never want to get together with a friend at lunch and not ask them, like, how are you really doing? Like, what's going on in your life? How's your marriage? How's your son? I know that this has been going on or that's been going on. Whereas I don't think that comes as natural to men. I think they say, you know, how's your sports teams? How's your movies? How's your whatever?
Yeah, it's hard. We've left 2 churches, and I feel like way more people cried about you than me.
Well, I cannot.
Can we just talk through that a minute? I'm feeling ashamed.
Okay.
I really do think...
I don't think that's true at all.
No, I do think it's true. I think you form much deeper, more vulnerable relationships with your female friends than I do with men I would call my friends.
I don't think it had anything to do with the churches. You're talking about just relationships.
Relationships.
Yeah, okay. I'm about to say the churches were very grieved, but yes.
On a personal level.
Yes, personal, yes, for sure.
So there's something I do think that men struggle with a lot of shame. We like to hide a lot more. Like we like to hide our flaws, our character issues and struggles. So there's so much here to talk about. But here's how I want to attack this. Recently, I was recommended a book, The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. Mm-hmm. And it's written by a nurse named Bronnie Ware from Australia. She specialized in taking care of people with terminal illness. And she would be with them all the way till the end. And she is also a writer, like as a hobby. So she would write down the things they say to her. Mm-hmm. And then when, over the years, she kind of stacked them all up, and there were 5 main themes of what people said at the end of their life. And since shame is often should language.
I should have, yeah.
I should have done this. It's regret. Oftentimes it's regret. So I'm going to read these 5 to you. And we can talk about it. And then in each of these, there's a quote that I've highlighted that I think is interesting in the book.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Number 1, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me.
Yes.
What do you hear when you hear that?
I immediately get kind of prideful, like, not me. I'm not going to live a life someone else wants of me, but that's not true. Everybody takes what they
We
think.
conform.
Yes. I mean, so then I feel like shame in my pride that, I'm strong and I'm not going to conform to a life that someone else wants of me. Well, that's not true. Like, I am going to do that. And in some ways we should, conform to your culture and your context. But I can understand why people get to the end of their life and think, was that the life I'd wanted to live?
Perfect setup. In the book, there's a woman named Grace. She's in her 80s. She was married for more than 50 years to a guy who was a tyrant. She stuck it out. She stayed with him. And then he goes into a nursing home with illness, and she confesses that this was a huge relief to her to not have to deal with him anymore. And within a short period of time after he goes into the nursing home, she's diagnosed with a terminal illness and realizes now she has very little time to do what she wanted to do with her life because she waited all this time and there's not time. But this is what she says. She says this to Bronnie. She says, why didn't I just do what I wanted? Why did I let him rule me? Why wasn't I strong enough? These were questions I heard repeatedly, Bronnie said. She was so angry with herself for not having found the courage. Her children confirmed the hard life she had experienced, and their hearts went out to her, as did mine. There are moments in life, this is a tragic one. This elderly lady says, if I could go back, I wish I would have stood my ground and been true to myself. I tried too hard to please him, and in the end, nobody wins. Now, this is really tough in the context of marriage because the covenant binds us together.
Right. I mean, yeah, I'm having a hard time with this.
So just to be clear, Bronnie Ware's not a Christian. So this isn't from this is not from a Christian worldview, but I think there are Christian people who feel this way, but they wouldn't say it. I'm stuck in a marriage. This is not what I would have chosen for myself, and there's resentment.
Yeah, I would go even beyond marriage to family, not the life others expected of me. I feel so sorry for families raising small children at this day and age because they must be involved in every single possible extracurricular activity known to man, or your child is going to be left behind and incapable of dealing with life kind of thing. And so, I mean, this is something where thankfully, like your job as a pastor, having 4 kids so close, we told every child, like, you can do one activity per season, but we can't do more of that. And so we did kind of have to put that down. But I know tons of moms who are like just burning the candle at both ends, trying to go here, here, here. And I wonder, like, if they get older, as they get older, will they think, I wish I would have lived a life that I would have preferred for our family, had made more moments, made more memories versus like practice, practice, practice.
Yeah, because the motivation oftentimes is not, I believe my kid has a real talent for this. It's, if I don't put my kid in these activities, I'm going to look like a bad mom.
Yep.
But I would say this, I feel like for me, there have been moments in our marriage where I have tried to place blame on you for something I'm not getting to do because it's just easier for me to make it your fault than for me to have to own it.
Do you want me to give an example to the audience?
Sure.
Kidding.
I'm serious if you want to.
You've told me a few times in very rare circumstances, you're the reason I don't have friends.
Correct.
I'm like, what did I do?
I did come back and apologize.
Yes, you did. I wouldn't bring up something that was an unresolved issue.
But in moments where I'm feeling lonely, I sometimes go to like, well, I'm married. Like, I don't have time to go hang out with the boys, play cards, do stuff that other people do. And that's all self-pitying. Almost always I'm just really too lazy and I'm looking for an excuse. So you're just an easy target. But I do think there's something here in terms of if you're going to live the life that's true to yourself, you have to have the courage to stand up and say, I want this and I'm going to make it happen.
Within reason.
Within reason.
How does this apply to a ministry family?
I think ministry families say, well, our church, they expect us to be X, so we have to be X, so we can't be Y. And so they live a life of resentment of they've had to conform to the image of what the church wants rather than who they truly are.
Or who they feel God's leading them to be.
Right.
I mean, to be fair, like the pastor of the church should have some sort of vision, have received a word or something from God of like where he feels like the church should go. And he should have the courage or the ability to be able to stand up to a church and say, hey, you know, I feel really passionate about this. So
I think self-awareness for most leaders, when you come down to it, you're good at a couple of things. And you spend a lot of time trying to convince people that your incompetencies aren't as bad as you think they are. Instead of just saying, hey, I need to own the fact that I'm really only passionate about a couple of things. All this other stuff, I've got to let it go. So I can't come to your meetings. And just start saying no more to things. I think that is often. So that's number one. Number two, you ready for it?
I wish I had not worked so hard.
I wish I had not worked so hard.
I would wonder if I wonder who says that more, men or women at the end.
Oh, without a doubt, it's men.
Well, I thought so, but I wanted to make sure.
I mean, I don't think that's only men. I mean, I can think of some high-powered like corporate women who retired from Lifeway and they're like, I want to go do family. I'm tired of having to be in meetings all the time.
Right.
I mean, I can think of one in particular, like our friend Faith. She went to be a grandma. She was offered a very high-powered position here and was like, no, I want to go be a grandmother because when I was mothering, I felt constantly like I didn't have time for family. And she looks really happy. So she does bring this up in the book, and she uses this gentleman as an example that he gets to the end of his life and he just really wishes he had spent more time doing the things he enjoyed. So he says this: if I can leave any good in this world besides my family, I leave these words. Don't work too hard. Try to maintain balance. Don't make work your whole life. Particularly for people in ministry, I think this is hard because you're always on call. The work is never done. You can't ever step away from being a pastor, particularly in a small town. So other people get to separate their 8 to 5 from who they are off the field. I think it's really hard for people in ministry.
I don't think we've done this well. I don't have good answers here. We've talked about this before. In 17 years of you leading churches, you never had a sabbatical. I don't think you ever took more than 10 days off at a time because you didn't want to be gone more than one Sunday. So we are the poster board for we probably work too hard.
If I'm honest, I've always felt like church is fragile. I've always felt like there's something brewing that if I don't keep my hand on this could turn into a real nightmare. So taking a lot of time off always fed my anxiety that I'm losing touch of like all of the instruments that are telling me things are okay. This is a control issue for sure.
I think you also had people say, we've talked about this before on here. I brought my friend and you weren't here. So you would feel some shame or guilt there that it was kind of like, well, it's my job to lead this church. People brought friends to hear me, to experience the church, and they didn't hear it kind of thing.
I had a conversation with a guy on our street the other day, though. He was telling me that they've taken a bunch of vacations, and he finally came to the conclusion that he just doesn't really like vacation that much.
Oh.
And I was like, really? He goes, well, like everybody builds it up like you're supposed to be having this great time. You're in this foreign place but if I'm honest with myself, I'm not having a great time. I think part of the problem with this issue is that a lot of men really enjoy their work. They're having a better time working than they are when they're on vacation. That's not always true, but I think that can be true. That if you're passionate about what you do, it feels more comfortable to just go to work than to have to travel across the country with kids who are frustrated and playing on their phones.
Or travel delays, flight delays.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Number three. I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings.
Me too.
Really?
Yep.
Can you elaborate?
I'm kidding.
Where do you feel like you're suppressing, Lynley? This is new information to our listeners, I think.
This is going to be one that I don't think I'm going to struggle with at the end. I think I will be the opposite. I wish I would have kept my mouth shut more.
Really?
Yeah, I'd be the opposite of this. Even today, I was in a workout class and somebody said something and I responded in something kind of sarcastic, but she doesn't know me well enough yet. And I could tell she was kind of like, was that funny or should I be offended? And I kind of kicked myself over it like, oh, I just wish I could be a little more joyful, a little less sarcastic at times.
I played a round of golf with somebody from Lifeway recently, a team member, and I was like, hey, what keeps you up at night? And he said, all the stupid things I said that day. So I just stay up late and I think, why did I say that? That wasn't funny. Or why didn't
It
I
wasn't.
say?
I could have said so many other things. That's what I left, and I was like, oh, I could have said so many things.
Yeah.
And I was trying to be funny, and I don't, I apologized to her afterwards, and she didn't receive it poorly, but I felt bad. Like, what a moment for her to have said something really kind, and I ruined it trying to be funny.
In the book, she talks about how we should express positive emotions more often. Like when you really appreciate somebody or they do something that means a lot to you, we
Yeah.
often don't take that moment to say, I cannot tell you how much this means to me. And I can express it.
Mm-hmm.
But she also talks about how important it is to let people know, like, hurt. So she says this: we must learn to express our feelings now, not when it's too late. None of us ever know when it will be too late. Tell people that you love them. Tell them you appreciate them. And if they can't accept your honesty or react in a different way to how you hoped, it doesn't matter. What matters is you have told them. I really appreciated the way she said this, because there are times when I have needed to say something to somebody to just truly just get it off my chest.
Mm-hmm.
And whether they responded or not in a positive way wasn't that important to me, but I needed to say it. When I came to Lifeway, there was a search firm involved in bringing me here. And the person that interviewed me asked me a lot of very personal questions, and I felt the freedom to be vulnerable. I told this person a lot of stuff about my past, my family of origin. Then when I came to show up to the presidency on the day that they would elect me, he had put all this into published form, and it was sitting on desks everywhere, copies of it everywhere. And it absolutely floored me that he had been so insensitive with that kind of private information. It took me 4 years to finally send him an email. Was it 5 years?
Yeah, you just did this a few months ago.
Okay, it took me 5 years to finally send the email to say, hey, I've been wanting to tell you this for years. I'm not asking for an apology. This is completely up to you on what you do with this, but that really hurt me. And I could not believe that you invited me to share so openly, and then you never protected that. And it really hurt me. And then that information, some of that did end up getting shared with people that I didn't want it shared with. And that hurt me even more. He never responded in a positive way. We did not have a good conversation after that.
No, he responded and said,
Let's talk about it sometime.
I had no idea or something like that. Let's talk about it. But then he never followed up.
Correct. And I'm okay with that. But I feel like I kind of buried that issue finally once and for all, because I let him know that it hurt me.
Yeah,
This is super hard for men.
for sure.
Steve Cuss is right. One of the hardest things for a man to say to another man is, you hurt me. And it would help a lot of us to just say that. And hurt is not always an assigner of blame either. Sometimes I get hurt and I shouldn't have gotten hurt, but it did hurt.
Or I think it's hard for a man to say he's lonely.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm not talking about you necessarily.
I have lots of friends. I don't know why you're bring that up.
Okay.
That kind of hurts my feelings.
Well, that's going to take us into number 4 anyway.
This chapter is about long-term relationships.
I know.
You are really good at this.
Thank you.
You and your college roommates, you get together once a year, and it's really special.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember last time you came home and you were like, it's so comforting to have friends who knew me way before I was anything I am now.
But if anybody's listening to this, though, and is in a season where their kids are younger, we did not meet for over a decade because our kids were all little. We were, in the throes of babies. So I don't want to shame anyone out there who has really special relationships. They just can't find time to meet with them. We didn't meet. I think it was actually 12 or 13 years spread out. And so, but when we did finally get to a place to where we felt safe, I mean, the kids were fine. Husbands were supportive to be able to let us go. Then we began meeting again once every year. Why are you laughing? Because
I just think men and women are so different in this. I think women think about their old friends and they think, we should get together. I think men think about their old friends and they think, those were good times. In the book, The Body by Stephen King, it's about these 4 boys. They have this amazing experience of bonds them together with all this stuff. And at the very end, a grown-up Richard Dreyfuss, who was one of the boys, he's writing the story, and this is how he finishes the story. And I never had friends like that again. But then again, who has? That's the end of the book. And it's really about how men miss being boys and having relationships that were more playful and vulnerable. And now we're all grown up and we don't have time to play, and we're not really vulnerable with anybody.
You know, image just popped into my head is when Max and his 4 friends caught a raccoon in our garage with a plastic container. I mean, I'm like,
Yeah.
they used a paddle from a kayak in this plastic container and trapped a raccoon, and then like they'd caught a bear, and then went and released it, and they were so proud of themselves. And I'm like, what men do that? Like, what grown men do that?
Well, it doesn't happen. I mean, I want to say to those boys, enjoy this. You don't catch raccoons when you're 48. And so there's this nostalgic feel about friendship that I think men feel because they had to grow up, take care of their families. But inside, they're really just boys who miss recess. Number 5. Can you read it?
I can. I wish I had let myself be happier. Okay, I'm going to read to you. I showed you this the other day.
I love this. I hope you'll put it in a frame because I'd like to see it more.
This is so interesting. This somebody had posted this, and is this a poem?
I think it's a non-rhyming one, isn't it?
Okay.
If that's true, then you don't really recognize it as
Then
true
I'm
poetry.
basically a poet. It says, every day is not an opportunity to improve yourself. Some days are just there for you to accept yourself and look at the clouds. This too is growth. This too is rising. Just existing is enough on some days. This is my favorite part. The flowers do it every day and make the world more beautiful just by being here. So do you. And the reason I loved that is because my perfectionistic tendency sometimes won't allow myself just to enjoy a good day. It's like, oh, that was a good day, and so I should just enjoy it, versus saying, oh, but you know what we didn't do today? We didn't do this. Or, oh, we have this opportunity and you should say this to one of the kids. Always this mentality of growth versus just being.
Yeah. Do you think some of that's just the human mind? I do wonder if the psychology of the brain is such that we cannot absorb the meaning of a moment until it's a memory.
I feel like that's a Dr. Seuss quote.
Dang it, you just outed me.
Trying to take credit.
Dr. Seuss, you're so smart. It's so true, though. How many of us, like when we're in a moment with one of our children, are like, these are the days of my life. But then later you look back on a photograph and you're like, I would give anything to do that again.
Yeah.
So Bronny's helping this elderly lady. She's rubbing lotion on her arms and hands, and this conversation happens. This woman says to Bronny, we all have a positive contribution to make. I've made mine. But while I was searching for my purpose in life, I forgot to enjoy myself along the way. It was all about the result of finding what I was looking for. Then when I did find work that I loved, work I could do with my heart, I was so results-based that I couldn't enjoy it. I resonate with that.
Mm-hmm.
There's something in ministry people's minds especially that's like, it's always about where the church is going to be a year from now, or where the staff is going to be 6 months from now, or when we can just hire this person.
Oh, we talked about this today. How you and I would disagree about mailers for Storyline.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk
Like
about
sending mailers. I'm like, can we just be happy? The church, NAM gave us some metrics to go by, and this would be mean success. But we kept having to like push the metrics to be, but we're going to be more successful.
We'd already beat those metrics.
By far. And like, but were you happy with that?
No, we had to keep growing the church. Can't take the foot off the gas because I'm a workaholic who doesn't have any friends.
But I'm saying, I wish we would have like enjoyed the moment, stopped a little bit, slowed down and said, man, look what God's done.
Yeah.
In this amount of time. He's already blessed it beyond what we thought. And let's just pause and enjoy the people we have versus, we got to send out another mailer and another mailer. And, this church gave a donation that we could do this and maybe get more people. And so I'm not saying that I wasn't a part of that. I'm just saying I look back and think, I wish we would have paused a little.
It's not unlike, honestly, someone who struggles with like weight loss, for example. Like if we have friends who have like really struggled with weight, like at some point they've lost the amount of weight that they wanted to lose. And it's really hard for this person to say, I did it. Like I'm in a really healthy place now. I'm where I wanted to be. No, they normally say 10 more pounds.
I got 5 more pounds.
I just need 10 more pounds.
Yeah.
Life is like that. It's like no matter how good it is, it's got to be just a little gooder.
Gooder.
It's a real word.
Good.
Yeah, it's in a lot of poetry. So
all right, repeat those.
Those are the top 5. You repeat them. You got them in front of you.
So to recap, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends, and I wish I had let myself be happier.
Which one is most hot on your heart right now? Like if you had to circle just one and say, yeah, that's, if I could only work on one, here's the one I would work on.
Well, I'm tied between 3 and 5, so I'm tied between what I'd said. I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings, and I mean positive feelings there, because our kids are two of the 4 out of the house, and I don't think I was super affirming to them of like loving feelings. Very disciplinarian type personality, but to say, man, I love you. I would say I love you. They're not like neglected children, but things that they did well, I wish I would have done more. And then I wish I had let myself be happier.
Mine is definitely expressing feelings, and I'm going to say something right now that you don't know about. It's a surprise. So for Thanksgiving, we're going away with the boys.
Mm-hmm.
I'm writing a piece for each of them. I'm going to read out loud to them.
Oh.
So I've already written the one for Max. I'm going to read it to you.
Right now?
Yeah.
What if Max listens?
This isn't going to air till after that.
Oh, that's right.
So this is still a work in progress. This is what I want to say to Max.
Okay.
It's called What You Give Me. In you, I find my younger me, living in the moment, enjoying my now, letting tomorrow worry about itself. In you, I find creativity. The Lord says, bring to me a new song. And I see the maker in you who brings a still in the package world to life and stares at it for a long while and says, that's good. In you, I find tenderness, the need to say goodbye to a furry friend who was there for you when you were small and scared. His journey was ending and you wanted to be there for him to help his heart safely home. And there was weeping in our bed that night when you knew you had broken a human heart, and you shared that with us. And I saw in you kindness, oceans of kindness that I get to swim in. In you, I find the God-man who came and called us peacemakers. Happy are the fence menders, the bridge builders, the ones who are wise enough to see that the clock will soon expire and all we have is each other when it's over. In you, I find my beautiful boy. He put his eyes of compassion in you. You give me peace. It's taken me 48 years to realize that telling people what they give you is really the best thing in life. And I'm thinking a lot about this in terms of even churches where we've led, the number of people that I always wait till I preach their funeral to say these things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a shame. I recently preached a funeral of James Ross from Jackson, Tennessee, like one of the greatest men I ever knew. And I said so many things at that funeral that I do not know why I didn't say that to him while he was alive.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the takeaway for me from the book was express your feelings to people. Tell them what a difference they make in your life. It's better to give than receive. I think I'll get more out of reading this to the boys than they will in hearing it. But it's such a special thing when someone expresses themselves. You liked my poem.
I'm crying.
You liked my poem. This is the first time ever on
That's
live radio.
That's radio. Gosh, we're not in like the 60s. That was good.
Thank you.
Yep.
Would you give it an A or a B?
A+.
Really? You're getting too generous with those. That's inflation.
That's the first A+ I've ever given you.
Well, there we go. There's our episode on shame. I hope it encouraged you. It's not a Lifeway book, and it's not written by a Christian woman, but I do think that Bronnie Ware has some interesting stories to tell about how we feel at the end of our lives and stuff for us Christians to think about. So I hope it helps you. The Glass House is executive produced by Angie Elkins, edited and engineered by Donnie Gordon with help from Nathan Howard, show notes and production help from Nikki Ogden, photography by Emily Bergeron and Bailey Watley. Recorded at the Lifeway Podcast Studio in Brentwood, Tennessee.